A U.S. silver refiner just went dark. Not a temporary maintenance window, not a scheduled upgrade, a hard operational shutdown, and the combined processing capacity now offline represents close to 10% of everything the global silver supply chain depends on to function. This is not a supply rumor. This is a refining infrastructure event, and the downstream consequences are already in motion. If you understand what that number actually means structurally, not just as a statistic but as a load-bearing wall being pulled out of a building, then you already understand why this video matters. Hit the like button if you want to keep seeing analysis that goes this deep, and subscribe because the mainstream is not touching what we are about to walk through. This is not financial advice. What it is a forensic examination of a structural failure that started long before the shutdown made the news. The core causal mechanism at the center of everything that follows is this. The global silver market has been operating on a fractional refining model, more paper commitments than physical processing throughput. And when a major node in that network fails, the entire chain does not slow down proportionally. It seizes. That is the architecture of this crisis. And understanding why that architecture was always fragile is the only way to understand where this goes next. Between December of 2025 and January of 2026, three of the world's most critical silver refineries, Johnson Matthey's Salt Lake City operation, Metalor in Switzerland, and Heraeus in Germany, suspended or severely restricted silver refining operations within a combined 21-day window. Together, those three facilities represented approximately 68 million ounces of annual processing capacity, which calculates to roughly 9.7% of the total global refining infrastructure. Force majeure notices were issued. Delivery contracts were suspended. Industrial clients who had built their entire production calendars around those delivery commitments discovered, with zero advance notice, that those commitments no longer existed. And then, within weeks of those three going dark, Asahi Refining and Umicore followed with contract terminations and rationing systems of their own. Another 58 million ounces of annual capacity restructured or withdrawn from the market in 6 days. This is where you need to stop and actually think about the mechanical reality of what that means. Global silver refining capacity sits at approximately 1.3 billion ounces annually across roughly 40 major facilities worldwide. When you remove 10% of that capacity, you do not get a 10% output reduction. You get a 50% disruption in practice because the supply chain is not a parallel system with redundancy at every node. It is a sequential pipeline. Raw ore and scrap come in one end, refined deliverable product comes out the other. When a major midpoint in that pipeline fails, everything upstream backs up and everything downstream runs dry. The pipeline does not reroute, it backs up. Stay with me, because this next part changes everything about how you interpret the price action you have been watching in silver over the last several months. The mechanism driving this specific failure is not simply operational, it is financial. And it starts with something called interest-free margin advances, a financing model that had quietly become the structural backbone of the entire silver refining ecosystem, and which almost nobody outside of institutional metals markets actually understood until it collapsed. Here's how the model worked. Major refiners, the big institutional players at the top of the processing chain, would advance margin capital to smaller regional and secondary refiners at zero interest. This allowed the smaller operators, who lacked the balance sheet strength to hold silver inventory at elevated prices for processing periods of 30 to 60 days, to keep operations running continuously. The large refiners essentially lent working capital into the system in exchange for guaranteed deal flow and throughput. It worked because silver prices were range-bound enough that the carry risk was manageable, lease rates were near zero, and the system as a whole was liquid enough that nobody needed to force the math on it. That model broke violently in October of 2025. Multiple large refiners simultaneously and without public explanation slashed their margin advance rates from effectively 100% to as low as 30% and began charging market interest on what remained. Within 24 hours, liquidity for regional operators evaporated completely. Refiners that had been running continuous operations for years could not sustain processing commitments. Backlogs exploded to 3 to 4 months almost overnight. And then, as the squeeze tightened, some of the largest refiners stopped accepting new silver intake altogether, issuing formal advisories that they were not purchasing until further notice. This is why the physical market began decoupling from paper prices before the shutdown headlines hit. The financing failure preceded the operational failure by weeks. The shutdown was a consequence, not a cause. But here's the part nobody understands. The financing model collapsed because the underlying economics of refining silver had already become structurally insolvent at the institutional level, and the root of that insolvency traces directly to silver lease rates. In any year of normal supply, 1-month silver lease rates sit somewhere between 0.3 and 0.5% annually. That is close enough to zero to be economically irrelevant. You lend out silver. You get it back. The cost of that transaction barely registers. By January of 2026, one-month silver lease rates had exploded to 8%, and some institutional data sources were citing rates north of 15% by late December of 2025. When lease rates go parabolic like that, what it tells you with absolute precision is that the market for physical silver available for immediate delivery has dried up to a level where the remaining physical holders are commanding emergency premiums to part with their metal, even temporarily. It is the clearest possible signal that the paper market and the physical market have structurally decoupled, and that the derivatives pricing you see on a screen no longer reflects what it actually costs to acquire or process real silver today. This brings us to the three structural forces that are amplifying this refinery shutdown from an operational disruption into a potential systemic fracture. The first is the 5-year accumulated supply deficit that the mainstream conversation systematically underweights. From 2021 through 2025, the silver market ran a cumulative physical supply deficit exceeding 800 million ounces. That is not a year-on-year imbalance that smooths out at the margins. That is 800 million ounces of consumption above production, meaning the market has been drawing down inventories, vaults, and above-ground stockpiles year after year to satisfy demand that mining and recycling simply cannot cover. The Silver Institute projects the deficit for 2025 alone at 115 to 120 million ounces, making it the 5th consecutive year of structural undersupply. When a market has been in 5 consecutive years of physical deficit, the buffer that normally absorbs supply chain shocks, the floating inventory held across dealer networks, vaults, and refinery queues, is no longer there at historical depth. The safety margin the system used to have is gone. That is why a refinery shutdown that might have been absorbed 5 years ago becomes a crisis now. And this is where things get structurally dangerous because the demand side is not cooling. Solar manufacturers consumed over 25% of annual global silver supply in 2024. In the first half of 2025 alone, solar panel fabrication drove approximately 448 million ounces of demand, a figure that represents more silver consumed by one industrial sector in 6 months than total global silver mine production over the same period. Yes, there is substitution pressure happening. Manufacturers aware of rising costs are working to reduce silver intensity per panel, but global solar installation capacity grew 64% in the first half of 2025 compared to the same period in 2024. The math does not resolve. You can reduce silver per panel and still see total silver demand from solar hold firm or rise if you are installing 6 times more panels than you were 3 years ago. Electric vehicle demand layered on top, EV-related silver consumption jumped an estimated 20% in 2025, and global EV sales were running 21% above prior year levels through October. These are not demand projections. These are actual consumption numbers from within the calendar window of the refinery crisis itself. The second structural force is the geographic concentration of refining capacity and what China's regulatory shift in 2026 actually means for the available processing alternatives. China controls somewhere between 55 and 70% of global silver refining capacity, depending on the source and methodology. When US and European refiners go offline, the logical assumption is that Chinese capacity absorbs the displaced volume. That assumption collapsed on January 1, 2026, when China implemented silver export licensing requirements, effectively restricting outbound flows of refined silver and positioning the metal as a strategic resource rather than a freely traded commodity. The second-order effect almost nobody has modeled correctly is this. China's export restrictions do not simply reduce the supply available to Western markets, they also eliminate China as the overflow valve that Western processors had implicitly assumed would absorb demand shocks. Every industrial buyer in the United States and Europe who was depending on Chinese refined silver as a supply alternative now faces the same constrained physical market as everyone else, with no backstop. Mexico, which supplies over 20% of global mine production, has simultaneously moved toward raw silver export limitations. The concentrated geography of both mining and refining was always a systemic vulnerability. It is now being activated simultaneously across multiple nodes. The third structural force is the COMEX inventory collapse, and what the backwardation structure in the futures market tells you about the physical delivery capacity of the paper system. Between 2020 and early 2026, registered silver inventories on COMEX, the metal actually available for physical delivery against futures contracts, fell from approximately 346 million ounces to approximately 82 million ounces. That is a 76% decline in deliverable inventory, while open interest and futures contract volume remained elevated. In January of 2026, JP Morgan alone took delivery of 99% of 8.1 million ounces in a single trading session. A concentration of physical demand so extreme it signals institutional actors positioning for physical scarcity, not financial speculation. At current delivery rates observed in early 2026, COMEX had roughly 3.5 months of registered inventory remaining before deliverable supply was exhausted. The silver market simultaneously entered sustained backwardation, spot prices trading above futures prices, beginning in October of 2025 and holding. Backwardation in a commodity market is not a technical signal, it is the market's own pricing mechanism, communicating that the cost of waiting for future delivery is now higher than the cost of physical possession today. It is the price system telling you that nobody with physical silver trusts the forward supply chain to deliver. The refinery shutdown is the structural explanation for why that distrust is justified. And here is the third-order effect that the financial press is not calculating. When COMEX backwardation persists and physical delivery demand intensifies, the arbitrage mechanism that normally brings paper and physical prices back into alignment, where traders buy futures and demand delivery to close the spread, breaks down precisely because the refinery network that is supposed to convert raw supply into COMEX deliverable 1,000-ounce bars is the part of the system that is failing. You cannot arb a spread that is caused by the delivery infrastructure itself being impaired. This is a self-reinforcing feedback loop, not a temporary dislocation. So where does the causal chain go from here, and what is the mainstream narrative getting wrong in a way that matters for anyone thinking about this structurally? The mainstream frame is simple and wrong. Silver ran up, some operational disruptions occurred, prices will correct when supply normalizes, and the whole thing resolves within 1 to 2 quarters as capacity comes back online. This narrative is structurally incoherent for 4 reasons. First, the capacity is not coming back online on any predictable schedule. Building new silver refining infrastructure is not a 6-month project. It requires permitting, specialized equipment, trained metallurgical staff, and capital commitments that nobody is making at speed. Asahi's new Salt Lake City refinery development was described in filings as being in a construction phase expected to reach substantial completion at some point in the future, meaning the gap in U.S. domestic refining capacity that was already present before the shutdowns is widening, not closing, in real time. Second, policymakers face a constraint that makes intervention structurally impossible in the near term. Silver is simultaneously a monetary metal, an industrial commodity, and increasingly a strategic resource. There is no single regulatory body with jurisdiction over all 3 classifications simultaneously. The Fed does not manage commodity supply chains. The CFTC regulates derivatives, not physical flows. The Department of Energy cares about the industrial supply chain for green energy deployment, not the futures market microstructure. Every relevant institution has partial jurisdiction, and no institution has full authority to force resolution. That is not a temporary governance gap. It is a jurisdictional architecture problem that takes years to reform. Third, the substitution narrative, the idea that manufacturers will simply swap out silver for cheaper alternatives, is real but slow. Copper and aluminum-based alternatives for solar busbars and EV electrical systems exist in early-stage industrial deployment, but qualification cycles for aerospace, defense, medical, and semiconductor applications run 2 to 4 years minimum. You cannot substitute away from silver at the speed this disruption is moving. Fourth, and structurally most consequential, the 5-year accumulated deficit means that any supply normalization in refining throughput does not replenish inventories. It merely stops the drawdown from accelerating. The buffer is already gone. Getting refining back to normal operational rates does not solve the underlying supply-demand imbalance that drove the cumulative 800 million ounce deficit over 5 years. It just stops the compounding of the crisis, which is a very different thing from resolution. What you are watching in real time is a market moving from a chronic slow-motion deficit into an acute physical scarcity event, triggered by refinery failures that were the predictable consequence of a financing model that was already under terminal stress before the first shutdown notice was issued. The chain of causation runs from 5 years of accumulated deficit to depleted inventory buffers, to extreme lease rate stress, to margin advance collapse, to refinery failures, to COMEX delivery squeeze, to sustained backwardation, to industrial procurement panic. Every link in that chain is documented, dated, and verifiable. None of it is speculation. The structural direction the forces are moving in is unambiguous. Physical silver is being reclassified, not by analysts or commentators, but by the behavior of the largest institutional actors, from a commodity with a functioning futures to physical delivery pipeline to a strategic resource where physical possession and long-term supply contracts hold premium value that the paper market cannot fully reflect. When JP Morgan takes 99% of deliveries in a single session, that is not a trading position, That is a strategic accumulation under cover of normal market mechanics. The question you should not be able to stop thinking about is this. If the paper price of silver is set by a futures market whose deliverable inventory has fallen 76% in 5 years, whose financing infrastructure just suffered a cascading failure, and whose primary industrial consumers are now competing with institutional buyers, defense procurement, and energy infrastructure demand simultaneously, what exactly is that paper price measuring? Because it is increasingly clear that it is not measuring the cost of acquiring physical silver, and the gap between those two numbers is the most important financial data point that the mainstream is not talking about.